I walked into my parents' house with pastries and a smile. My dad looked at me and asked, "Why did you come?" 1 hour later, he called me panicking. His bank account was empty. I was the one who emptied it. If you've ever given everything to people who gave you nothing back, hit that subscribe button. This is the story of the day I finally stopped being the family ATM. My name is Lisa. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a single mom to 2 amazing kids. I work as a medical receptionist at a clinic downtown, and I've been doing it for 8 years. The pay isn't great, but it's steady. It keeps a roof over our heads and food on the table. But here's the thing nobody tells you about being the responsible one in your family. You become everyone's backup plan. My parents, Stephen and Sandra, have always treated me like an obligation. My mom had me when she was 17. She's told me more times than I can count that having me ruined her body and stole her youth. The first time she said that to my face, I was 10 years old. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, and she just looked at me and said it. Like it was my fault for being born. My dad wasn't much better. When he's drunk, which is most weekends, he likes to joke that if condoms hadn't been so expensive in the 90s, he'd have a boat by now instead of me. People laugh when he says it. Nobody ever tells him to stop. So I grew up knowing I was unwanted. But I also learned something else. If I was useful, maybe they'd keep me around. Maybe they'd love me eventually. That's how I became the daughter who always says yes. Yes to covering their bills when they forgot to pay them. Yes to sending money at 2 in the morning because Dad's car broke down again. Yes to taking their calls, even when I'm exhausted from working a double shift. Yes to bringing my kids over, even though my mom criticizes what they wear, and my dad calls my daughter Michelle moody if she doesn't hug him on command. Last month alone, I sent them $700. Dad said he needed it for urgent car repairs. 2 days later, I saw photos on Facebook of his brand new outdoor smoker and a pair of expensive Bluetooth headphones he bought for his evening walks. A few weeks before that, my mom, Sandra, texted me asking for help with a dental bill. She said it was an emergency. I sent the money that same day, even though it wiped out most of my grocery budget for the week. 3 days later, she posted photos from a spa day with her friend Emily. They were in matching robes at some fancy hotel suite, holding champagne glasses. I didn't ask her about it. I never do. Because the truth is, I already know. They don't need me. They need my money. But I kept saying yes anyway. Because somewhere deep down, I still thought that if I gave enough, did enough, sacrificed enough, they'd finally see me as valuable. As someone worth keeping. Then came the holiday brunch. The text came through on a Saturday night. Holiday brunch tomorrow. 10 a.m. Be there. No, please. No, hope you can make it. Just a command. I almost didn't respond. I was exhausted. My son Daniel had been sick all week, and I'd used up 2 of my sick days staying home with him. Money was tight. I didn't have extra to spend on a hostess gift or fancy clothes. But I responded anyway. We'll be there. The next morning, I got the kids up early. I dressed them in their nicest outfits, the ones I'd been saving for school photos. I even straightened Michelle's hair, which took forever because she has thick curls like mine. I let Daniel bring his Nintendo Switch in the car to keep him entertained. On the way, I stopped at a bakery and picked up a box of pastries. Croissants, Danishes, the kind with a shiny glaze that cost $3 each. It set me back $40 I didn't really have, but I wanted to contribute something. I even wore the necklace my mom once said she liked, even though the clasp digs into the back of my neck and leaves a red mark. When we got to their house, the front door was unlocked like always. I pushed it open, balancing the pastry box in one hand and holding Michelle's hand with the other. "Hello!" I called out. No answer. The house smelled like stale coffee and whatever lemon-scented cleaner my mom sprays on everything but never actually wipes down. The TV in the living room was blaring, some morning game show where people screamed over prizes. I could see my mom through the doorway, standing at the dining table folding cloth napkins with sharp, angry movements. Like the napkins had personally offended her. My dad, Stephen, was in his recliner, already drinking. It wasn't even 10 in the morning. I put on my best smile and walked into the room. "Hey, we made it. I brought pastries." My mom glanced up briefly. Her eyes swept over me, then the kids, then back to her napkins. "You're late." I wasn't. We were actually 5 minutes early. Traffic was a little. Lisa! My dad's voice cut through the room like a knife. He didn't even look at me. Just stared at the TV, swirling the ice in his glass. I stopped mid-step. Michelle squeezed my hand tighter. He still didn't turn around. Just spoke louder so everyone in the house could hear. This was supposed to be a nice day. The room went completely silent. Even the game show seemed to quiet down. I felt my chest tighten. My smile was still frozen on my face, but I could feel it starting to crack. Then he said it. "Why did you come?" The words hit me like a slap across the face. Not, "I'm glad you're here." Not, "Come sit down." Just, "Why did you come?" Daniel looked up at me. His eyes were wide and confused. "Hurt. Mom," he whispered. "Should we leave?" I looked at my dad. He still hadn't turned around. My mom had gone back to folding napkins like nothing had happened. My cousin Anthony was standing in the kitchen doorway with his phone out, watching, waiting to see what I'd do. I felt something inside me shift. Something that had been bending for 15 years suddenly snapped straight. "Yes," I said quietly. "Right now." I didn't wait for anyone to respond. I turned on my heel, grabbed Daniel's hand, and walked back toward the door. Michelle followed without a word. The pastry box was still in my hand, unopened. Behind me, I heard my mom's voice. Not calling me back. Not apologizing. Just, "She's always so dramatic." The door clicked shut behind us. We sat in the car for a full minute before I started the engine. My hands were shaking. Daniel and Michelle, I ordered coffee for myself. Black. I didn't even look at the menu. When the food came, they dug in like we hadn't just walked out of a family event. Like nothing bad had happened. Maybe for them, nothing had. Maybe they were just relieved. I sipped my coffee and watched them. Daniel got syrup on his shirt. Michelle laughed at him. And for the first time in weeks, the tightness in my chest started to loosen. Then my phone buzzed on the table. "Dad." I stared at the screen. Let it ring once. Twice. 3 times. Then it stopped. A text came through immediately. "Call me." What the hell is going on? I set the phone face down. "Mom." Michelle was watching me carefully. "Are we going back there again?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Probably not," I said. She nodded and took another bite of her pancakes. "Good," she said quietly. Daniel didn't even look up from his plate. Just said, "Yeah, good." That's when I knew. I picked up my phone. I opened my banking app. Found the shared account. The one I'd set up years ago for emergencies that my dad treated like his personal piggy bank. Current balance, $1,847.32. I transferred every single cent into my personal account. Then I submitted a request to close the account permanently. My hand didn't shake once. Betty came back over. "Anything else, hon?" I looked up at her and smiled. A real smile this time. "No," I said. "I think we're perfect." By the time we got home an hour later, I had 6 missed calls. 3 from my dad, 1 from my mom, 2 from my cousin Anthony, who never talks to me unless there's family gossip to spread. I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and left it there. The kids settled into the living room with a movie. I went upstairs to my bedroom and opened the old wooden box I kept in the back of my closet. Inside was everything I'd been saving for years. Receipts, bank transfer confirmations, emails asking for money, text message screenshots. I started printing them all out. This wasn't for them. This was for me. A record of every time I gave when I shouldn't have. Every time I tried to buy love that should have been free. Then the email came. Subject, "Really? After all we've done for you?" It was from my mom. 5 paragraphs of guilt. 0 accountability. She said I embarrassed them by storming out in front of everyone. That I was overreacting and making my kids soft. She ended with this line. "You're lucky we even include you anymore." That line did something to me. It lit a fire I didn't know I still had. I clicked reply. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't hold back. I told her I remembered being 11 years old and overhearing her tell Aunt Melissa that I was never supposed to happen. I told her I remembered when she made me hide my second pregnancy from her friends because she didn't want people thinking I was irresponsible. I told her I remembered Dad calling me lazy and useless after I got laid off, even though I was still paying their phone bill that same month. I wrote it all. Every single thing I'd been holding in for 20 years. And then I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. 20 minutes later, my dad called again. This time I answered. He didn't say hello. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just started immediately. You embarrass me, Lisa. Everyone at Brunch thinks you're being dramatic. You need to fix that account before my bills start bouncing. No, I said. Silence. What did you say? I said no. He went quiet. I could hear him breathing heavy on the other end. You remember when you told me I'd never amount to anything because I got pregnant at 19? I said. My voice was steady. Calm. You remember when I graduated from community college with honors and you didn't show up because you said it wasn't a real school? He didn't answer. I'm done, I said. I'm done letting people who don't respect me live off my money. Then I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it felt right. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. A different number this time. It was my Aunt Melissa, the one who always watched from the sidelines but never stepped in. Lisa! Honey, I heard what happened, she said. I just want you to know. I'm proud of you. I've been waiting years for you to do this. I sat down on the edge of my bed. There's something you need to know, she continued. Your mom's been talking about you behind your back for years. Telling people you're always asking them for help. That you're bad with money. That you can't keep a man. That you use your kids for sympathy. I laughed. Actually, I laughed out loud. She's been painting you as unstable, Melissa said. That's why the family's been distant. That's why nobody reached out after your divorce. She made you the punchline, Lisa. I stayed quiet and let her talk. She told me everything. How my mom had been spreading lies for years. How they'd made sure I was isolated. How they made sure I had no one to turn to accept them. If you need anything, Melissa said, you come to me. You've done enough for them. That night I didn't sleep. I went back through my emails and printed out every receipt. The list was longer than I'd realized. Dad's insurance deductible, casino weekend. Mom's prescription money, designer handbag posted 3 days later. Cousin's birthday gift she forgot to buy, $150. Every lie, every manipulation, all of it on paper. The next morning, Daniel asked if we'd be seeing Grandpa again. Probably not, I said. He nodded. Good. He's mean to you. I almost broke right there, but I held it together. Instead, I took all the printed papers and put them in a folder. I labeled it, in case I forget why I stopped answering. By noon, I'd blocked their numbers. That's when the real chaos started. 2 days later, there was a knock on my... It wasn't an apology. It was a threat. I looked at Anthony. Do you agree with her? He didn't answer. Just said he was told to drop it off. Then he asked if I closed the account because I was going through some kind of phase. Like I was a teenager acting out. Goodbye, Anthony, I said and closed the door. I threw the entire bag in the trash. An hour later, my bank called. My dad had tried to log into the account using my old password. When that didn't work, he called the bank pretending to be me. He gave them my social security number, my birthday, everything. They flagged it as fraud and froze my accounts temporarily for protection. I was stunned. I hadn't expected him to go that far. Then I remembered, years ago, I'd sent him a photo of my driver's license for some notarized form he needed. He'd kept it. He'd kept everything. I went to the bank in person the next day with my folder of evidence. The woman helping me looked through it all and said quietly, "You should think about legal protection." I didn't want to believe it was that serious. Then I got another email from an address I didn't recognize. But the tone was unmistakable. It was my dad. He said I'd made a fool of the family, and that if I didn't fix things, he'd tell everyone what kind of mother I really was. That line didn't scare me. It annoyed me. My kids knew who I was. They saw me working 2 jobs. They saw me stretching mac and cheese for 2 days. They knew I was trying. The next day, Aunt Melissa showed up at my house with a manila envelope. "I think it's time you saw this," she said. Inside were screenshots, text messages my mom had sent to family members over the years. Messages mocking my job, joking that I was addicted to being a victim. Even one where she implied she didn't know who Daniel's real father was. My hands went cold. Then I saw the last photo. It was my dad, smiling, holding a check in his hand, a check I'd written 2 years ago to save their house from foreclosure. The caption read, When you raise a sucker but it finally pays off. That check had cost me everything. My heater had been broken that winter. I'd been layering socks on my kids' feet at night just to keep them warm. But when Dad called and said the bank was going to take the house, I didn't hesitate. I wired him the money, went to sleep in a freezing apartment, and told myself that's what family does. He called me his little lifesaver that day. Meanwhile, he was sending photos to his friends, calling me a sucker. I stared at that photo for a long time. Melissa sat beside me, silent. Why do you have all this now? I finally asked. Another cousin came forward, she said. Someone who was in the family group chat you were never invited to. Your parents have been talking about you for years. But now that you've cut them off, people are asking questions. And one of them sent me the proof. She paused. You need to protect yourself, Lisa. I don't think they're done. That night, I got an email from the local police department. A fraud report had been filed against me. My dad claimed I'd stolen from him, that I'd cleaned out his account without permission. He'd attached forged screenshots as proof. It was sloppy, but it was enough to get attention. He wasn't just mad anymore. He was trying to destroy me. I drove to the police station the next morning with every document I had. The officer raised an eyebrow halfway through my explanation. Do you want to file a restraining order? He asked. Yes, I said. It felt surreal, asking the law to protect me from my own father. But it felt necessary. Later that afternoon, my kids came into the room while I was on hold with the county clerk. Michelle sat beside me. Mom, why is Grandpa trying to hurt us? Before I could answer, Daniel said, he's just mad you're not giving him money anymore. It was jarring, hearing it so clearly from a 10-year-old. But he was right. As long as I kept paying, I was useful. The second I stopped, I became the enemy. That night, I blocked 5 more numbers. 2 cousins. One of my mom's old friends. Someone I didn't even recognize. The smear campaign was in full swing. But I didn't care anymore. Then, just as I thought the worst was over, I got a message on Facebook. From someone I hadn't heard from in nearly 10 years. My brother Matthew. The message was short. I heard what they did. I'm sorry it took this long. I believe you. I stared at those words for a long time. Matthew had left home at 17 and never looked back. I used to think he was selfish for abandoning us. Now I realized he'd just been the first one to save himself. We messaged back and forth. He told me everything I was discovering now, he'd seen years ago. That's why he left. He said Dad had told him I wanted nothing to do with him. That I blamed him for breaking the family. A complete lie. They're experts at turning people against each other, Matthew wrote. They tried it with me too. The pain hit differently then. Not just for what they'd done to me, but for how many years they'd stolen from both of us by keeping us apart. That night, I added him back to my contacts. Save his name as just Matthew. Not brother, or maybe, just Matthew. And then I did something I should have done years ago. I posted on Facebook. I didn't go into details. I didn't name names. But I wrote the truth. I will no longer be supporting people who disrespect me. Financial abuse is real, even when it's family. Loyalty without respect is slavery in disguise. I'm not shrinking anymore to make selfish people comfortable. The response was immediate. Some people unfollowed me. A few sent nasty private messages, clearly sent by my parents to defend them. But far more people reached out with support. Some shared their own stories. It was like it was a rebuild. That night, I sat on the couch with my kids. I turned off my phone for the first time in weeks and made them a promise out loud. I would never again let anyone treat us like we were disposable. Not even family. Especially not family. The account stayed closed. The numbers stayed blocked. And my dad, for the first time in his life, learned what it felt like to hear the word no. From now on, he'd have to get used to the silence. You know what? When I first read Lisa's story, part of me thought, is she being too harsh? But then I remembered. Her parents called her a mistake. Took $700 a month from her. Mocked her behind her back. And then humiliated her in front of her children. Lisa didn't destroy them. She just stopped being their safety net. And honestly, that's not revenge. That's self-respect. Some people spend their whole lives taking, never expecting the people they've hurt to finally